This apple and this apple are the exact same, except for one thing. I only paid $1.29 for this apple, but for this one, you paid nearly 3 times that. Not because yours is any better, it's not organic, and I didn't get mine on sale. These are exactly the same, but the algorithm decided that you would pay more than me.
Whoa! This is big news if this is true.
Listen, folks, your milk might start having a rush hour price to it.
These price tags started updating right in front of me.
Just stick it to your customers just a little bit more.
What a wild concept.
Carnegie, Rockefeller, and Vanderbilt. What do they all have in common? They owned monopolies. Carnegie was the king of steel, Rockefeller was the king of oil, and Vanderbilt was the king of railroads. These guys focused all of their time and money on one thing, and that was dominating their industries. As their businesses grew, they were able to effectively crush any competition and choose whatever price they wanted to charge. And they were pretty much untouchable. But in 1890, a senator from Ohio formed a bill that would allow the government to step in. This bill, also known as the Sherman Act, only had 2 sections. Section 1 made price fixing illegal, and Section 2 made it a crime to monopolize or attempt to monopolize an industry. As you can imagine, when the government passes a law that goes against the richest people in the country, they usually find creative ways around it. So in 1914...
Usually find creative ways around it? How about every time they find a creative way around it? These monopolies that currently exist, they are out of control. And the government seems to not want to do anything about it. Why? Because money speaks.
And the government had to pass the Clayton Act, which was specifically made to ban practices like price discrimination and exclusive dealing agreements. It also created the Federal Trade Commission to enforce all those rules. But even with the FTC and the Sherman Act today, things aren't really working like they should.
Fancy way of saying your groceries are going to start acting like airline tickets.
So let's play a game to really understand what we're dealing with. Here we have 2 grocery stores, Dave's and Willie's. To keep things simple, let's pretend they each sell the same thing. Both stores sell their apples for $3 a piece. Customers don't really have a preference, so they just shop wherever their heart desires. But Dave decides that he wants to make a little bit more money, so he lowers his price to $2.50. For the next week, the majority of customers start shopping at Dave's for their apples because they're cheaper. But as soon as Willie catches on to this, he lowers his price to $1.99. Again, all the shoppers follow the lower price and move back to Willie's. As you can imagine, this could just continue indefinitely, and that's why it's called a race to the bottom. This is the ideal scenario for us because companies are forced to compete for the lowest price to attract
This is when capitalism works.
However, after all this back and forth, both Willie and Dave are now making way less than they did when both of their prices were $3. If they could get together and create a plan, they could both raise their price to $5 and make way more because customers have nowhere else to go for their apples. But that would be considered collusion, and that's illegal according to the Sherman Act.
Super illegal.
Is it illegal if it's not humans doing the collusion and instead it's the algorithm? And what if the algorithm didn't just know what everyone else was charging, but it also knew everything about you? We're gonna get to that.
See, like, people argue that there shouldn't be a social credit score or anything like that, but guys, these companies already know everything about you. They're already doing this. They already have a profile on you. You know, look at Palantir. You notice all those cameras at the stoplights that don't send you tickets if you run the red light? Well, those are still watching you. They're still following you. And there's giant databases full of all this information. They know where you are at all times. They know your credit score. They know your home address, the most frequented places you go, if you're like going somewhere that you normally don't go. And these things are starting to trickle down into stores, not just police departments. Got to be aware of what's going on around you.
But I have something else to show you first. Exchange-traded funds were built in the 90s, and when you invest in one, you get what you get. You can't customize it, and there's only about 4,000 total options in the United States, and sometimes you may not want to invest in some of the companies inside of them. But what if I told you there was another option? Our sponsor, Public, just launched something called Generated Assets, and it brings AI into investing in a way I've honestly never seen before. Here's how it works. Say I've got an idea to build an index of companies that are actively investing in American manufacturing. Previously, I'd either have to go individually study all the stocks and individually invest in them, but now I just head over here here. All I need to do is type in my idea. Then Publix AI sends out a swarm of agents that scan every single US stock, evaluates them, and instantly builds a custom index around
That's
my
really cool.
investment idea. And
About
this is
time.
the coolest part. Not only do I get a report that shows exactly why each stock was included, but I can even backtest my idea against the S&P 500. So it's not just some random guess. I can see how my thesis could have performed against the S&P 500 over the last 10 years, for example. And beyond just generated assets, Public lets you invest in stocks, bonds, options, and crypto all in one place. If you have investments on other platforms, Public is even offering an uncapped 1% match when you transfer them over. So if you want to build a portfolio that actually reflects your...
That's really cool. You kind of to build your own ETF right now. That's a cool little ad here, bud.
Thoughts and ideas, visit public.com/grant. Let's take a look at this chart. It's a simple concept most of us learned in school. Here you have a line showing...
He couldn't even draw a straight line with a ruler. You guys see that?
The point where these lines
hilarious.
cross is the optimal price an object should be. As the demand goes up, the price goes up. As the demand goes down, the price goes down. This used to be the main way of pricing goods, but ever since we started carrying these around, things have changed. Airplane tickets were some of the first things most of us noticed. Depending on what time of year you were buying them or when the trip was planned for, it might be more expensive or less expensive. On a Tuesday. This is what's called dynamic pricing. Yeah. It's the reason Ubers cost more during rush hour.
Yeah, it's the reason when you're overseas and you're trying to get back home, all of a sudden prices to get home are $2,000 to $3,000. Realized that the hard way. Jeez. Thanks, dynamic pricing.
And why flights cost more during spring break. Dynamic prices are set by non-customer specific variables. These are things that are determined without any customer data, but as we've started to open our lives up more and more to data collection, we've pretty much opened Pandora's box and allowed companies to take complete control of our spending. If we return back to the Sherman Act, you'll remember that price collusion is considered illegal. For something to be considered collusion, there needs to be an agreement to fix prices between multiple parties. But that agreement doesn't need to be said, written, or even directly agreed on. It could be something as simple as a wink. For example, if Dave and Willie, our grocery store owners, are out golfing one day and Dave says, "Man, the price on these apples is way too low." Then they both go and raise the prices the next day. That's considered illegal collusion. In other words, you don't need a direct agreement at all. You just need to prove that they are no longer acting independently. That leads us to the problem we're having today. And in order to explain this, I think we need to order some groceries. Now,
I noticed there are things on Instacart that are not the correct price if you go into the store. That's a fact. I've seen that firsthand the past couple weeks, not being able to drive myself. Instacart is definitely overcharging you, and it's not like Uber Eats where they're just tacking on 15-20% to every item. It's just like each individual item has its own price, and like sometimes it's the same price, and then a lot of the times it's significantly more.
Instacart has been getting some heat lately. In a recent investigation, Consumer Reports found that grocery store prices were completely different for each customer, sometimes as much as 23%.
Whoa.
And most of us know Instacart because of their app and being able to simply order our groceries instead of walking around the aisles of a grocery store, but they are also the leading software that grocery stores rely on. I mean, just think about it. Instacart had over 250 million orders in the first 3 quarters of 2025 alone.
So
That's
many orders.
Hundreds of millions of data points that they can compile and sell to the grocery stores to improve their efficiency. Because it's a digital storefront, there aren't any price tags, and they can update things in real time. They even acquired Eversight in 2022, which is an AI company designed to optimize pricing, promotions, and discounts. But that optimization isn't for the customers, it's for the stores. According to Instacart, the tools they've built with Eversight can increase grocery store sales by 1 to 3% and profit from additional sales by 2 to 5%. All of this being driven by an algorithm that is not only testing and updating prices and discounts in real time, but it's also using our information against us. Which brings us back to our previous point on dynamic pricing. If you remember, dynamic pricing is based on non-customer specific variables. But to do what Instacart was doing, you need customer data like where they live and what they do for work, otherwise known as surveillance pricing. It is important to note that as
It's such BS. You've got to be kidding me. How is it any different if an AI model is doing it? There's a human behind it that told the AI model what to do. This should be illegal. This needs to be investigated immediately. I can't understand it. I saw certain things like that I was just browsing for. Juices, milk, soda. Like, all these things are totally off as far as the prices you see in the store. Because I was just in there. Luckily, the meat and the vegetables were just fine, but yikes.
As of December 22nd, 2025, Instacart did announce
in-store sales were not on the app.
All price tests and use of Eversight technology to run those price tests, but they are still allowing tests on promotions and discounts. Now, surveillance pricing really caught on thanks to social media. As we've shared more of our lives online and taught the algorithms what type of things we like to look at and buy, we're giving them the keys to our brains and how we shop. Not just that, but the brands have also found new ways to collect even more data, and they've gotten really good at hiding it from us. All those loyalty programs you belong to, they're not really designed to reward your loyalty with free drinks and fries. Instead, they're just the bait to extract even more information from you. When you download their apps, you're giving up access to things like your location, the purchases you make on your phone, and some apps even include mini games that you'll play for extra points. But those mini games are actually designed to study your psychological habits to learn even more about your shopping style. So when you're presented with an ad or you're looking to order your next meal,
I wonder, how can you play a little mini game and show your shopping habits with that? That's very interesting. I need to look more into this. It's scary.
App knows exactly what to put in front of you to maximize their profit. And that decision is made by an algorithm. These algorithms are constantly taking in new information and forming opinions on you and what you're willing to spend. And this gets really creepy when you start to think about it, because these brands have built these huge profiles on us. If I lived in Beverly Hills, I used an iPhone, I shop at Whole Foods, I make reservations at nice restaurants, and I typically take 2 to 3 vacations a year, my shopper profile would feed me higher priced goods every time, and I would buy them without a second thought. On the other hand, if I only shopped at discount stores, I'm already saving coupons, I never go out on vacation, and I rarely purchase something if it's not on sale, the algorithm will only ever feed me discounted items or lower priced goods.
Well, I guess that's kind of okay. Not as far as like gouging people that have money, but you know, people that need to save their money and don't overspend. Just showing them and tailoring the app and the products to be on discount and have a reasonable price just to move the product. I guess that's okay. I really don't like the whole, like, everyone pays the same price equivalent to how much they make idea, though.
Even if the discount was just created as an illusion to get me to buy more. In other words, with surveillance pricing, the price we see is specifically tailored to the way we buy and the price we expect to pay for things. But don't just take my word for it, because this is actually happening around us right now. In 2019, an investigation showed that Target was charging $4.99 for a TV on their app. But when you pulled into a parking lot of one of their stores, the price would increase to $5.99 because the algorithm assumed you're more likely to purchase if you're already at the store. Also, in 2012, Orbitz was caught pushing Mac users to more expensive hotel options than PC users. When you would log onto the site with a Mac, the more expensive options would pop up first. The algorithm assumed that if you had a Mac, you were probably in a higher income bracket and could afford it. One study even showed that shoppers selecting fast delivery on baby formula were labeled as rushed parents and were assumed to not be price sensitive. So the algorithm would just bump up the price on baby items. But the problems don't stop with these brands just setting the prices, because these algorithms aren't actually owned by each individual brand you have an account with. They're typically third-party providers, which means your data is being collected by one brand, sent to another company, and then compiled and shared with who knows how many companies. And now they all have access to what makes you most likely to purchase and how much you're willing to pay. But
that is super Orwellian. What in the world? Oh man, this surveillance state has gotten sincerely out of control. Holy crap. Are you kidding me? Wow, they're literally watching everything we do all the time and changing our profile. Guys, we're already there. We already have social credit score. It's just different than how we imagine. It's not a number. It's a series of habits.
Because all these brands use the same third-party providers, the algorithm also knows what every other brand is charging for the exact same thing. And in order to
and if you like bite for it once on something that's overpriced, then it probably knows like, okay, these type of items they're willing to overspend on. And over time, they just start to build this basket of things that you're willing to spend more money on because they're things that you have to have in your life. Whoa.
Explain why that's a problem, we need to look at a company called RealPage. They're a software company that landlords could use for a variety of things, but specifically, it helped them determine the optimal price to rent their units out at. Similar to Dave and Willie in their grocery stores, landlords used to set their prices with a ballpark idea of what the market was willing to pay. They did this based on things they saw, heard, or observed around them. They weren't allowed to do this through agreements with one another because that would be collusion. But by using RealPage, landlords were getting pricing suggested to them. That pricing was
That's why everywhere you look across the country, all these houses are like a minimum of $350,000 to $400,000. No matter whether you're in Green Bay, Wisconsin, San Diego, Houston, Miami, New York, it doesn't matter. Middle of nowhere, Kentucky, all of these things have just risen out of control over the past couple of years, as if they're all communicating to each other, hey, let's raise these prices to this point. So like, it doesn't matter where people go anymore. You're gonna be making this much money.
All of the confidential data that RealPage had access to, which included all of the prices of the rental units in their area and the supply of units available. Using this information, the algorithm learned that instead of constantly decreasing prices to compete with other landlords, it could just set a higher rate for everyone and give the renters no other options. In some cases, the rental rates run by RealPage software increased by over 25% in just 11 months. It's just like the conversation Dave and Willie had earlier about raising the price.
And that's crazy, because if it's 25% on average, that means that there's some people who are just not cool with it that will raise by like 5 or 10%, and there's some that are like 45, 50% more.
$5. If everyone raises their price, there's nowhere else to go, and the customers have to pay it. But this brings us to the question, if it's an algorithm determining...
That's the problem with America. It's no longer supply and demand. It's how much money can we extract from the people before they riot, before they stand up and notice what's going on. You know, it's like we're all under a spell. You look at gas prices around the world, it's so cheap to fill up your car in Malaysia, in Cambodia, all these other countries. Here, they just like... They push it to the limit just as high as they can possibly go without pissing everybody off. And I don't understand it. This is capitalism at its worst. We really got to reel these things in.
The prices, and the landlords or companies aren't actually discussing anything. Is it collusion? This has been a hot topic as AI and algorithms have completely outpaced our current laws, but the DOJ in several states did sue RealPage over anti-competitive practices. There's currently a proposed settlement between the DOJ and RealPage that would force them...
Wow, a settlement. Okay, so you make billions of dollars and then you get fined a couple $100 million. Yeah, obviously everyone's going to do that every single time. What are you talking about? No, they need to take all of their money, close the company down, make their practices illegal.
Stop offering software that recommends how much to charge tenants, which is a win, but there also has been similar cases related to hotels and casino pricing that have been...
It's basically like a mafia-style buyout for protection. That's all that is. The company makes all this money, and they're just like, okay, here, government, are we allowed to continue doing what we're doing in these other states? Like, here's a bit of money, here's a chunk of our profits. It's ridiculous.
Dismissed in court due to lack of evidence. Which leaves us in this weird twilight zone.
Shut down.
And is part of the reason this video was so hard to make. As AI continues to advance...
And the people who invented it and perpetrated this problem, they need to be held accountable. They need to be locked up. I don't care how rich they are. They don't get to go to a country club prison either. They go to the same prison that everybody else goes to.
And we continue to integrate the digital world with the physical world. How far is this all going to go? This is an electronic shelf label. You've probably noticed them at stores like Best Buy or Target, and in theory,
Walmart.
It makes it easier for stores to reprice items or change shelf layouts.
Theory? No, that's not theory.
They
That's
can also
fact.
be changed remotely at any time, which means
scary.
It won't just be Instacart changing the pricing in the app while you're shopping, but they could update it in real time depending on who's looking at it. Kroger recently partnered with Cooler Screens, who makes those digital freezer doors we're starting to see that often have an ad on them. But the scary part, is that they also have a facial detection feature in them, allowing them to change the ad on the screen depending on the age and gender of the person standing in front of it. Kroger does deny that they're using the facial.
And then if you're fat and you want some bad shit, like they can raise the price on you, which might be a good thing. You know, it helps society get a little healthier. Hey, you don't need to be eating this, bud. Cookies are more expensive for you. You've clearly had too many in your life. No, but seriously, this is not good. This is big, big, big trouble.
Recognition technology, but we can all imagine what's possible.
That's like saying, oh, you have this incurable disease? Well, we're going to charge you extra for the medicine just because you have to have it. That's wicked.
If they decide to turn it on.
Pretend you were to walk into a store tomorrow. As soon as you walk through the door, your phone pings so the algorithm knows you're in the building and immediately has all of your shopping preferences saved. As you're walking through the produce aisle, the algorithm knows you've been watching TikToks about banana bread, so the price tag on the bananas instantly increases from $1.59 to $1.99. As you continue walking through the store, you reach the freezer aisle where the camera on the door recognizes that you're with your 15-year-old nephew, and because the algorithm also knows you've been watching Netflix on your phones, an ad pops up for the new Stranger Things Eggo Waffles collab. Not only that, but the camera also sees your 8-year-old niece who always asks your Amazon Alexa to play the songs from Frozen. So it shows a buy one, get one half off of the waffles and a Frozen-inspired ice cream flavor. Neither of which were things we were planning on getting when I walked in the door, but now
kind of cool, kind of creepy.
I'm spending more than I originally intended. This is just a small example of what's possible.
It'd be fine if the price gouging wasn't there. You know? Like, okay, yeah, we're talking about Frozen stuff. We're really into Frozen. Let me know that you have Frozen ice cream. That's one thing. But to change the price, get an extra 25 cents to $1 out of you? Wow. It's cumulative.
Technology, and it's only getting smarter and better at predicting the maximum amount we are all willing to pay.
If we continue down this path, there won't be a market price anymore, and competition will basically just disappear. We would reach a state of what economists call perfect price discrimination, meaning every person will see a price that is 1 cent below the maximum amount we would pay for an item. Some people would pay $4.99 for an apple, while others would pay $1.99. And all of this is almost unavoidable. Some economists say that surveillance pricing creates a more efficient market because the price reflects real-time supply and demand on
And again, it would be one thing if these companies were taking that extra profit that they made and giving it back to the employees so that people could better their lives. But that's not what's happening.
A per-person basis, but it also eliminates the free market. If all the stores use the same algorithm, you'll never be able to shop around for a lower price or find any real deals. It'll all just be a facade. There have been some proposed regulations that would require online and in-person stores to label things more clearly and say that they were price band algorithm, but all those pricing decisions we talked about are meant to be hidden from us. So how would we know if we're actually getting taken advantage of, and would we be able to enforce?
I just got to thinking, what if the algorithm knows that you're a welder, for instance, and you go on to Wrangler and you want to look at their fire retardant clothing, and because it knows you're a welder, it knows that you really need it, or you're more likely to buy it, so they raise the price by 10%. That's really creepy, dude.
These new regulations. Thankfully, groups like Consumer Reports are conducting studies and investigations to dig into this, but to a certain extent, we have no idea what's actually happening. And I don't know what the perfect solution is. Do we put a stop to surveillance pricing completely? If so, how would that be enforced?
How do you do that?
Do we set limits on price increases? Or do we force every company to create their own internal pricing algorithm? I'm not really sure, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Now is your chance to subscribe because, as you saw in this video, we are trying to ramp up our production and make these videos more engaging and just more entertaining overall. I have some...
Dude, that's excellent. That is so crazy, though. I can't wrap my mind around it. I totally understand what's going on, but I don't get how people got to this point. Let's just take advantage of people is the mantra of all of these board members. Let's take every last little dollar from these people that we can. And, meanwhile, they've got us distracted with all of these, riots and protests and things that are going on in the world that just take our attention away from what really matters. And that's our freedom, because ultimately, capital is freedom. Having money is freedom. It's a tool, and it's a part of our living and our being, just like being able to do as you please and make autonomous decisions instead of being directed and manipulated by these companies, these conglomerates that are clearly behind the scenes colluding and working together. Wow. Incredible video. That's Grant Rudow. Go and give him a like, give him a subscribe. Do the same for me. Hit the comment section. Let me know what you think of this, because this is crazy, dude. I can't believe this is happening. Peace out, guys.